Loops 21. By Safrinith. 21. 1. More Turning the Tables, by Stainless Steel Fox. Is this some sort of joke? Blueblood's perfectly polished tones came from the gazebo where Applejack had held the tasting. You intend to offer Princess Celestia this carnival stall junk food? Now don't you take that tone with me, Mr. Hoity-Toity Hooves. This is made from Sweet Apple Acre's finest apples, and every pony in the apple family contributed their best recipes to this spread. You intend to offer Her Royal Highness Princess Celestia common apples? Blueblood looked down his muzzle at her. The princess only partakes of the finest cuisine, oranges from Mandarin, sweet cactus from Saddle Arabia, crisped Nepalese seaweed with the finest rose honey crystals from the Netherlands. All of it is prepared by the finest chefs. As the ruler of Equestria she deserves no less. Applejack scratched the back of her head with a hoof. That's as may be, but I figure after all that fancy food, she might like to try some plain old apples, just for a change. And when it comes to making them into cakes and pies, I back our family against any pony in Equestria, or all those other places, matter of fact. We even got some pony from Canterlot to taste 'em already, and she reckoned they were just fine. Ain't that right, Codex? Blueblood followed Applejack's gaze, and caught sight of Twilight's disguised form. And what are you? Twilight pushed down her first reaction, which would have seen him turned into the first ever royal artichoke, and tried to mediate. I'm Codex, the new town librarian, and I did live in Canterlot before I moved here. I think you're being far too hard on Applejack and her family. I loved everything I tried. She noted the lack of crumbs or anything else around him. It may not be as fancily presented as you're used to, but it's really good, and it's for the whole of Ponyville. You should try it at least. And hiding in a library for your entire life has made you an expert on organizing a royal visit. How? Blueblood sneered. I don't need to try these pitiful pastries. Just as I don't need your advice to decide that the catering for the Summer Sun celebration is not done. He levitated his checklist and made a big cross against the first bullet point, and with that he turned on his hooves and trotted towards the gate. I will have to get the mayor to order proper food from a Canterlot bakery, one that serves the palace, not some amateur farm pony. Applejack was fuming, and a couple of other members of her family seemed about ready to chase him down, guards or no guards, and were being held back by Big Macintosh. Why that stuck up no account? I can fix it. Twilight said, interrupting her before she could a simple copy correction spell and it'll be a tick. I can even delay it a couple of hours so he won't notice. You can do that? Apple Bloom asked. Sure, it's not enchanted legal parchment, just plain old paper. It's a standard spell for any pony who has to manage paperwork. As a librarian would, or a student of magic. After all, quills blotted occasionally. Applejack thought about it, then sighed, hanging her head. Nope. It's tempting, but I ain't going to cheat like that. Besides, what if he's right? Twilight snorted. Princess Celestia wouldn't think that way for a second. Even if it wasn't up to her usual standards, she'd still accept and appreciate that it was an honest effort, and trust me, those things are as good as anything you'd get in a fancy Canterlot bakery. She noticed Applejack looking at her curiously and reviewed her last few sentences. Oh, horse apples. How'd you know all that about the princess? The only thing to do was roll with it. Well, every pony in Canterlot knows how the princess acts. She is kind of a big deal, after all. Palace gossip even reaches us librarians. I also know all about Prince Blueblood, and trust me, that was exactly how he normally acts. Applejack seemed to accept that. Is there anything else we can do, any way we can appeal? Twilight knew exactly what the responsibilities of a royal overseer were, and that Blueblood had overstepped his authority, but baseline Twilight wouldn't. However, she'd spotted a book that could help when she'd been organizing the library. She'd read cover to cover several times in previous loops. I don't know, but I think I saw a book in the library that could be useful. Can you keep an eye on him, make sure he doesn't do any more damage while I get it? I'll do my best. Applejack headed off. Twilight made her own way back to the library and just outside it almost ran into Rarity again. Twilight had been looking where she was going, but the white unicorn wasn't seeing anything, mostly due to the tears streaming down her face. Whoa there! What's wrong? Twilight could guess, and Rarity quickly confirmed it, between sobs. Oh Codex, it was terrible. Prince Blueblood himself was sent here to oversee the preparations for the summer sun celebrations. I was in charge of the decorations, and when he appeared it was like a dream come true. Then it turned into a nightmare. He immediately started going on about how insulting it was to offer to host the princess in a mean little packing crate of a hall like this. I did my best to impress him, explain my vision, and how much effort every pony had put into getting them ready, but he called my materials, my designs, tacky and cheap. He said I was a know-nothing draper with delusions of adequacy. This brought on a fresh wave of crying. I thought he was my handsome prince, come to take me away, but instead he was a royal pain. Twilight asked, hugging her and manifesting a tissue to dry her tears and let her blow her nose. Yes. The hug or the sympathy had let her calm down a bit. Inwardly Twilight was a little surprised. Blueblood must be really annoyed, and taking it out on every pony, as this went beyond even his native talent for jerkhood. Artichokehood was looking better and better for him. Of course, he probably believed the stuff about Celestia. She was one of the few beings he looked up to, and put on a pedestal, and he projected his own attitudes onto her, but magnified. She suddenly had a horrid moment when she realized that that description could have applied to some pony else. Her baseline self had been exactly that way about studying. For Celestia's sake she'd just used the fact as part of her plan. The concept that she could ever have anything in common with Blueblood was immediately captured, imprisoned, banished to the moon and then imprisoned again for good measure. Fortunately Rarity had been too busy leaning on her shoulder to notice her moment of introspection. I'm sorry, I could have told you if I'd known. Twilight sighed. Even I know that Prince Blueblood is a jerk, a stuck-up prig with all the charm and social grace of the back end of a buffalo. I came back to the library to find a book on the job he's supposed to be doing, hopefully to spike his little white flying chariot. Rarity drew herself up and set her most determined expression. Then let us both look. Together maybe we can deal with this poisonous princeling. The search didn't take long, and in moments they were trotting back out, Twilight holding the book up in front of her and reading while she trotted. She already knew what needed doing and who was doing it, but her in-loop self wouldn't. Okay, catering, decorations, clear sky? Who would be doing that? Rarity smirked. There's only one pony that springs to mind, no make that does a loop-de-loop. Rainbow Dash, she's the senior weather pony for Ponyville. Well, he doesn't seem to be doing much so far. Twilight looked up at the cloud-filled sky. She. Rarity corrected with a giggle, some of her good humor restored. She's probably practicing her stunt routines or something. I hear the Wonderbolts are making a special visit from Canterlot for the celebration, and every pony knows she wants to be one. They passed a Wonderbolts poster, and Twilight replied, well, she's got to be warned about Blueblood. He'll probably take one look at the sky and cross it off as undone. Seeing a blue and rainbow blur out of the corner of her eye, she called out in a loud voice. Why Spitfire? You're here a day early? Maybe I could get an autograph. She took a step to one side and materialized a purple net of energy standing on end to intercept the blue streak that arrived before she finished her sentence. It shifted underneath her and lowered her to the ground. Hey, thanks for the save. I heard Spitfire was here and I might have got a little overenthusiastic getting here. So where is she? Rainbow Dash was eagerly looking around for her idol. Twilight gave an embarrassed smile. I'm afraid I was making that up. I'm Codex, the new librarian. And you would be Rainbow Dash. The one and only. The blue Pegasus preened, then gave a sigh, so you were just pranking me? Ah, nuts. Hat, well, you got me good. I didn't figure librarians went in for pranks. You'd be surprised, but that wasn't why I was doing it. After all, this whole thing was a prank, though it was starting to turn distinctly sour. Twilight held up the book. The royal overseer for the summer sun celebration is here already, a Prince Blueblood, and if he sees you haven't cleared the clouds, you are the one supposed to be doing that, right? Yep, but that ain't a problem. I can get a sky clear in 10 seconds flat. Rainbow Dash looked thoughtful for a moment. Though come to think of it, I may have met the guy. White unicorn, fancy jacket, expression like some pony smacked the backside of a buffalo. That got both of the other ponies chuckling. Rarity exclaimed. Oh my, yes, that describes him perfectly. I may have kinda run into him, and knocked him into a mud puddle. Dash admitted. I said I was sorry, even cleaned him off with a rain cloud and a personal hurricane, but he just got those two guards of his to run me off. Not that I couldn't have taken him, but it wasn't worth the effort. Twilight face hooved, though the mental image of Blueblood with a hurricane hairdo was pretty satisfying. I think we can safely say he's going to mark that task down as incomplete, that leaves only the music. Hat, Fluttershy is all over that, she's training up a choir of birds. She's really good with animals, but really shy around other ponies. Rainbow's face suddenly fell. Oh no, Bozo Bluenose and his goon squad are heading right for her. We gotta stop him. Lead the way, Applejack is trying to slow him down. Twilight was still managing to leaf through the book, even at a trot. The pony from Sweet Apple Acres? Sure, I saw her, but Blueblood's just ignoring her. As Rainbow led them out towards the outskirts of Ponyville and Fluttershy's cottage, they could hear Blueblood. This is a joke. How dare you attempt to pretend that a lot of twittering birds is a fanfare worthy of a princess? In Canterlot, only the finest musicians are even allowed to try for the privilege of playing for her. Hey! You just simmer on down before I make you. You ain't got no cause to be hollerin' at Fluttershy like that. I told you, this ain't Canterlot, and you ain't got no right to treat any pony like dirt either way. I am Prince Blueblood, and I can. Ack! Get them off! Get them off! They ran onto the scene to see Fluttershy's choir of birds dive-bombing Blueblood, while Applejack stood between him and the cowering yellow Pegasus. His guards were looking on, not jumping in to help on either side. Blueblood's hair was still in the poofy shape of Rainbow's patented rain blow-dry technique. Don't let them get their droppings on me. My immaculate mane, my coat. He staggered several steps back, and the birds flew away to circle Fluttershy protectively. His telekinesis scooped up several rocks and flung them at the birds. Shoo! Shoo! Go away, you horrid things! The birds scattered, the poorly aimed rocks missing them, but the action finally seemed to spark Fluttershy into action. She flew up into the air and shielded the scattering birds with her wings and body. How dare you! How dare you! She swept down like an avenging angel, bunny, and ended up hovering with her face a few inches from his. Throwing stones at poor innocent birds. You should be ashamed of yourself. Blueblood scrambled back further to avoid the fearsome gaze of the greater enraged Fluttershy. Guards! Help! Get me away from this mad mare! The two guards swooped in and scooped him up with a foreleg under each shoulder, carrying him away towards Ponyville. Hoi! That was pretty impressive! Applejack exclaimed, coming up alongside Fluttershy, who was still breathing heavily. Yeah! Way to go, Fluttershy! You had that puffed-up prince by the eyebrows. Rainbow Dash cheered. Rarity beamed. The way you rooted that ridiculous ruffian was a joy to watch. The yellow mare seemed to finally realize where she was and that she was surrounded by ponies and shrunk in on herself a little bit. Every pony, I think we should give her some space. Twilight said quietly but firmly. I know you're probably her friends, but I don't think she wants to be crowded right now. Hat, you might be right, Fluttershy ain't the best of ponies for being the center of attention. Rainbow Dash admitted. C'mon Applejack, Rarity was it, we can let her catch her breath for a bit. Fluttershy? Maybe you should go and check your birds are okay. Twilight suggested. The yellow Pegasus nodded, with a faint echo of what might have been a grateful smile, and flew off to collect her scattered birds. Applejack turned to Twilight. I'm sorry Codex, I did my best to stall him, but he's as stubborn as a stump. We all saw you did all you could. Twilight smiled, adjusting her pince-nez glasses with a flick of telekinesis. Fortunately, I managed to find this. She held up the book on high so every pony could see it. Prince Blueblood has been exceeding his authority in half a dozen ways, as well as making a complete ass of himself. With this I can call him on it. He's probably at the mayor's office right now, ranting and raving, doing his best to make sure Ponyville doesn't get to host the Summer Sun celebration. What say we trot on over there and spike his little white flying chariot? Sure as sugar. Yeah. Let us be off. Twilight turned to see Fluttershy hovering some way back, looking at her. I'd like to come too, if you don't mind. Twilight smiled her most genuine smile. We're glad to have you along. I'm Codex, the new librarian. Don't worry, I know, you're Fluttershy. Dash told me you were more comfortable around animals than ponies. She started leading the group back towards Ponyville as Fluttershy gave a nervous nod. I sort of know where you're coming from, it wasn't so long ago I felt more comfortable around books than ponies. I guess I just needed to meet the right ones. She looked around at the others, and they gave encouraging grins or smiles back. I know I'm among friends here, and I think you can be too. You don't have to do anything that makes you uncomfortable, but I'm sure every pony is glad to have you with us. Can I come too? What is this, a parade? A party? A party raid, that sounds like a cool drink to serve at party parade. Pinky had arrived from somewhere. We're going to see the mayor and deal with Prince Blueblood and his guards. So that's the new pony I saw in the town square today. I knew he was new because I didn't recognize him, and I know every pony in Ponyville, so I went gasp and thought since he was new he wouldn't have any friends, except those two guards, and they looked kinda grumpy, and that made me sad, so I was going to throw a welcome to Ponyville party for him and you and him so that you'd both make lots of new friends. She stopped for breath. Great, so what are we going to play when we deal? Canasta, go fish, strip poker. I really should put on some clothes if we're going to play strip poker. Sugar cube, that ain't what Codex there meant. Blueblood is trying to stop Ponyville hosting the Summer Sun celebration, and we're going to stop him stopping it. No Summer Sun celebration? But it's going to be the biggest, bestest party in Ponyville ever. There was suddenly a fire in Pinky's eyes. No pony stops the Summer Sun celebration. Twilight held up the book. He won't, and we're going to stop him with this. They reached the town hall to find the entrance guarded by the two Royal Guard Pegasi. As the group approached, their wings swept out to cross the entrance with a metallic shing. I'm sorry, but no pony is allowed in there. Prince Blueblood is meeting privately with the mayor, the left-hand one stated. I bet he is. Rainbow Dash growled, revving up to charge at them. Dash, I've got this. Twilight called out as Applejack caught the Pegasus's multicolored tail. She faced the two guards and glowered at them over the rims of her glasses, brows furrowed. You will put those wings down or I will pluck them bare. Are you threatening us, ma'am? The guard who'd previously spoken asked, slightly incredulous. He was clearly the senior of the two, so Twilight focused on him. No, I'm ordering you to cease your illegal actions, and using hyperbole to make sure you're actually listening to me. Illegal. Twilight gave a theatrical sigh. Are the two of you real royal guards, or just a pair of thugs Blueblood stuffed in armor to make himself look important? Well, Sergeant. She'd watched Shining Armor do his command voice often enough, and she was a very good student. For that matter, she'd helped him study for his officer's exam more than once, and knew the material at least as well as he did. The pair stiffened up at the question, and came to attention. Royal Guards, Royal Protection Detail. Very well. Has Princess Celestia issued an order suspending civil writ in Ponyville? No ma'am. Did she give Prince Blueblood plenipotentiary or ambassadorial powers, anything beyond the task of royal overseer for the Summer Sun celebration? No ma'am. Has the mayor granted you civil police powers within Ponyville? No, ma'am. The more talkative guard was now looking puzzled, while the younger's eyes suddenly widened in realization, though he stayed still otherwise. Twilight noted it though. I'm glad to see at least one of you didn't sleep through basic training. Without explicit extension of your authority, your job is just to protect the prince from physical harm or verbal abuse. You have no right to block off any pony from access to a public building, let alone a civil servant going about her duties. At most you could stand outside the mayor's office and request that we not enter until the meeting is finished, and courtesy would require us to comply, but that does not have the force of law, or allow you to use coercion. And as we have information bearing directly on Prince Blueblood's conduct of his position, it is our civil duty to lay it before the mayor before her meeting with Blueblood concludes. She used the stare over the glasses move again. Now. Drop. Those. Wings. The Pegasi's wings snapped back to their sides. The other ponies were staring at her in amazement. Wow! You really are Codex the librarian! Pinky exclaimed. Goodness darling, I hadn't realized you had such a commanding presence. Twilight blushed. I read the Royal Guard Field Officer's Manual. Also the Combined Forces Guide, the Compendium of Military Law, a lot of legal and history books. Plus several hundred loops of real-life experience where she'd been in life or death command positions more times than she could count. Twilight gave the two guards a pleasant smile. Thank you, gentlemen. I can see why you might think some of the ponies here might want to slap him silly. You are of course welcome to accompany us to see that we do not offer Blueblood any harm, which is within your remit. To be honest, in fact, inasmuch as it does not interfere with your primary duty, I request and require your assistance in delivering this information and material witnesses to the mayor. This is my right as an employee and therefore civil servant of the Township of Ponyville, as covered under Section 34A, paragraphs 12 and 13 of the 5th revision of the Compendium of Military Law relating to civilian authority over the military. While Blueblood as Royal Overseer has that authority too, his is administrative, deriving from his specific duties, whereas mine is jurisdictional, deriving from my position here in Ponyville, and has primacy. In short, in this context, even I outrank him, and it covers you if he gives you any hassle over it. Ma'am. The sergeant spoke up. Twilight looked back at him. Having established her authority, she had no need or intention of beating them over the head with it. By all means call me Codex, and you both are. Sergeant Silverwing, Ma. Codex. Corporal Earhart. Celestia's blessing might make them look alike, but the higher, alto voice of the corporal suggested there was a girl under the helmet. Very good, you wanted to say something, Sergeant. An apology, and a warning. I think we both assumed Prince Blueblood had the authority of the crown behind him. He's a powerful noble, and a bad enemy to make. Twilight was genuinely touched, but then, despite what she'd said earlier, a ponies for a royal protection detail wasn't exactly picked out of a hat. Thank you, Sergeant Silverwing. I'm from Canterlot myself, and I'm aware that his position gives him considerable extra legal power. However, we're doing this strictly within the law and by the book, and I've read lots of books. The second diet of Canterlot requires nobles, and even the royal family to act within the bounds of the common law. How'd a weight loss plan do that? Applejack asked. This diet was a constitutional meeting, headed by the princess, several centuries ago. Equestria was in transit from a feudal model to a more imperial one, with the bureaucracy taking over administrative and executive duties from the old noble families. Some of them saw it coming and managed to gain control of the ministries, and expanding them to provide jobs for their families and hangers-on. The bureaucracy was adding a lot of dead weight. You had departments which existed only on paper and in the accounts of the exchequer, and department heads who never actually set hoof inside their offices. Celestia used the diet to push through reforms to make it more merit-based, and root out the special privileges of the nobility that had allowed it to happen. To make it solid, she bound the royal family to abide by the accords, and forced the lesser nobles to follow suit or be shamed. Pinky summed up. So the government was overweight, and the princess put it on a diet. More or less, Twilight giggled. You were right, Applejack, it was a weight loss plan. She turned more serious. As for making him a personal enemy, I'll deal with it as it comes. She turned to the other ponies. You've all done your bit to make sure that there's a summer sun celebration tomorrow, now it's my turn. Asterisk. Blueblood was in full flow. He'd had more than enough of this town, and every pony in it. He'd been dragged away from his preparations for a private and exclusive party he'd been planning in Canterlot to deal with the preparations for the summer sun celebration. He'd done it last year in Canterlot, and the exquisite, and fabulously expensive soiree he'd put together had netted him a huge amount of social capital. The fact that it had come out of the city budget rather than his personal accounts had been an added bonus. However, just because he'd done it once, he didn't think he'd be asked to do it again, and certainly not in a trivial little hamlet like Ponyville. After all, who of any status or worth in society was there here to impress? Meanwhile, every moment he was away from Canterlot, some other pony was poaching his guests, and ruining the carefully planned follow-up to last year that would secure his position as top pony in the social, as well as the noble hierarchy of Equestria. The fact that the ponies here clearly didn't understand the honor that had been bestowed on them by the personal presence of a princess, and for that matter his own presence, just put the exquisitely engraved sterling silver lid on it. He'd never use anything so common as tin, not even in metaphors. The impertinence of that common farm pony, that brutish Pegasus shoving him into the mud, then soaking him and ruining his perfect mane styling, and that unctuous unicorn making cow eyes at him, some sort of seamstress who seemed to think her sense of taste would impress a princess. Then he'd been attacked by a crowd of squawking monstrosities and that rabid Pegasus. What sort of idiot thought that a bunch of birds was a suitable fanfare for a pony who raised the sun? Well, at least he would have the considerable pleasure of making sure they never got to inflict their indignities on Princess Celestia, and get some proper catering and party planning in from Canterlot. Despite the lateness of the day, he didn't anticipate much problem. Getting to serve the princess would be a considerable feather in their chapeaus, and they'd undoubtedly remember the pony who'd given them the chance in the future. His scheming, planning didn't prevent him instructing the mayor about his requirements. And I expect you to get a proper orchestra, not some bunch of birds and a lunatic Pegasus. Everything was agreed well in advance, Your Highness. We have neither the time nor the money to change things now. The mayor's voice was steady, but strained. I am the royal overseer for this event and you will do as I say. I have been embarrassed, belittled, insulted, and assaulted ever since I arrived in your squalid little hamlet. Twilight knocked on the door with a hoof. The mayor's voice immediately cut across Blueblood's rant. Come in. Twilight entered, and the others trooped in after her. Blueblood immediately freaked. He'd restored his original immaculate appearance, but he hadn't recovered his aplomb. Sergeant! I told you I was not to be disturbed under any circumstances. Get those peasants out of here and consider yourself on report. Sergeant Silverwing gave a painfully textbook salute and stared a hoof above and to the right of Blueblood's ear. Yes, Your Highness. Sorry, Your Highness, but we're not allowed to impede a civil servant in the course of her duties. Miss Codex has information that had to be brought to the mayor immediately. In fact, she commandeered our services, under Section 34A. I don't care. She's one of the ringleaders of this plan to humiliate me, they all are. They're nothing but a bunch of ringleaders. Twilight decided it was time to interject. I doubt we could do a better job than you've done of humiliating yourself and bringing disgrace on the good name of the royal family. Did you even bother to find out what your duties were before you came here, or did you just assume you could do whatever you wanted, as seems to be the case in Canterlot? How dare you speak to me like that? Do you know who I am? The prince stomped a hoof. I think every pony between here and Canterlot knows who you are, the way you've been bellowing about it. However, no matter how big a wheel you are in Canterlot, your only role here is as the royal overseer for the Summer Sun celebration, and that authority, and its limitations are set out here. She placed the copy of the Summer Sun celebration duties and responsibilities on the mayor's desk. Chapter 2, paragraphs 12 through 22. The plan for the proposed Summer Sun celebration is the responsibility of the mayor or other head of local government, to allow them to properly reflect the culture and capabilities of their locality. It is then approved by the Department of Culture and Recreation, and the princess or her equerry on her behalf. Executive authority also rests with the local government. Mayor gave her a grateful smile. That's what I've been trying to tell him. I received the certifications over a month ago. I put Ponyville's very best ponies to arranging things. The ponies behind her preened, while Rarity and Rainbow Dash did. I was royal overseer and ran the Summer Sun celebration last year in Canterlot, so don't tell me I can't do the same here. In that case, Princess Celestia had probably delegated executive authority as well as the task of royal overseer to you. It makes sense, as she's the Grand Duchess of Canterlot and therefore the leader of the city council, but was probably far too busy to do the job herself. Twilight paused and adjusted her glasses, letting that sink in. Blueblood hadn't bothered with the details of the paperwork, he had secretaries to deal with such things, so he couldn't say she was wrong. There had been a lot of paperwork too. The rules as written don't give you the authority to change things, your role is purely administrative, to ensure that the plans are going ahead as required, and offer assistance if there has been some last-minute slip-up. Not to try and change the agreed arrangements because they don't fit your personal tastes. The only reason you could cancel the celebration would be in the case of gross failure to complete one of the tasks. Blueblood sneered nastily and glanced out of the window. Then I have you. Clearing the sky was one of the tasks, and it's still full of clouds. Twilight gave Rainbow Dash a nod, and the Pegasus made a hasty exit. So even if you can use some archaic legalisms that should have been edited out of the logbooks ages ago to weasel around your failure to provide a proper Summer Sun celebration, you still can't get away from your failure to provide a clear sky as required. Twilight saw Rainbow Dash appear at the window with a salute and a wide grin, and smirked. Who says we haven't provided a clear sky? She pointed at the window and Blueblood looked over at it, then did a double take and rushed over to look out at the clear blue sky. But, that's impossible. Rainbow Dash slipped back into the mayor's office, panting slightly and stage whispered. 10 seconds flat, I don't let my friends, or Ponyville, down. Oh. Oh. Pinky was practically bouncing up and down with excitement. I guess that means we can't have archaic and edit. There were groans and chuckles all round, except for Blueblood who drew breath to start another rant, until Twilight decided to stare at him over her glasses. Under that withering gaze, he seemed to deflate. In the process of grossly overstepping your authority, you have, what was your phrase? Embarrassed, belittled, insulted, and assaulted the citizens of Ponyville for not acting as if your word was law. You treated Applejack like a serf, grossly insulted her entire family, acted like a complete bore to Rarity, had the nerve to send your guards after Rainbow Dash after she did her best to make up for crashing into you, and even verbally attacked Fluttershy. Her birds only swooped on you because you were attacking her, and it was quite clear they did that on their own. You are a poor excuse for a member of the nobility, let alone a relative of Princess Celestia's. And I have no doubt that she will be most displeased with your actions here today. That seemed to finally hit home. He took a few steps back, head and ears down, and gave a sigh. It's not like I wanted this job in the first place. I have my own party to plan in Canterlot. It was going to be the crown of the social season, the soiree that would affirm my position as the premier socialite in Canterlot. But when that boorish bookworm Twilight Sparkle had a conniption fit and ran away, who do you think was drafted in to fix her mess? Twilight had been feeling good, even righteous over bringing Blueblood to book, in several senses of the word, but this suddenly hit her right in the gut. It seemed her friends weren't the only ones hit by the unintended consequences of her scheme. She was feeling sorry for Blueblood of all ponies. Yes, he was a stuck-up narcissistic prat, but he was still a pony with hopes and dreams of his own. Some of his previous fire had returned. I may not have wanted it, but since I was stuck with it, I was going to make sure this party was fit for a princess. She deserves nothing less than the best, the same excellence she'd get in Canterlot. But what's the use, I'm stuck with all this. He tapped the checklist with its crosses in a disgusted manner. Twilight made a decision. He wasn't stupid, whatever his other shortcomings. He was simply ignorant, and ignorance could be cured by teaching. If you truly believe that, then maybe you should consider this point. Princess Celestia chose Ponyville as the venue where she'd raise the son, not Canterlot. If she'd wanted a Canterlot experience, wouldn't she just have stayed there? If you truly want to do what's best for the princess, maybe we can salvage this. If you'll just give these ponies a chance to prove that what they've put together is the best that Ponyville has to offer, maybe you'll see that this is what the princess wanted after all. She turned to the other 5. I know this is a lot to ask, but will you give him a second chance? If you want, we can make an official report of his conduct, see him punished for everything he put you through. But maybe we can do this a better way. I'm sure you all wanted to prove that you did your very best, and there may still be a chance to do exactly that. However, it's up to you, one nay kills it. Applejack shrugged. Shoot, he were as ornery as a one-eyed rattlesnake, but I figure the talking to you just gave him makes up for that. I only ever wanted to do this right and proper. I'm in. He was absolutely rotten to me, Rarity said with a superior expression that Blueblood himself would have envied. Then she softened. However, I could understand if he had a certain artistic vision which my decorations didn't match. I would be interested to hear just what a Canterlot pony would do differently, rather than telling me what I'd done was wrong. It isn't any feather off my wings, Rainbow Dash said, then looked over at the yellow Pegasus. But the way he went after Fluttershy, I figure he should get some comeback for that. But if Fluttershy forgives him? Fluttershy spoke quietly. I don't mind as long as my birds get to sing at the celebration. They've worked so hard, and they're looking forward to performing for the princess. Twilight Sparkle looked over towards the mayor. Madam Mayor. Very well. The grey-maned pony nodded. Twilight turned back to face Blueblood. So, are you willing to give these ponies a chance? Pinky chipped in. Don't mess with her, she has mysterious librarian powers. I don't have much of a choice. Blueblood just hoofed over the checklist with a defeated sigh, and Twilight's horn glowed as she erased the crosses on it. As they came down into the main hall where the celebration was to be held, Rainbow Dash was drawn into a quiet conversation with Applejack and Twilight Sparkle, and went straight out the door before dusting off and heading away towards Canterlot at improbable speeds. Prince Blueblood noted it. Where has she gone anyway? Oh, just getting something from Canterlot for Applejack. Twilight said. That's a 2-hour flight even by chariot. Blueblood exclaimed, and the 2 Pegasus guards, who'd actually flown it, looked even more surprised. Applejack chuckled. Not for Rainbow Dash when she gets a bee in her bonnet. She ain't called Dash for nothing. I begin to see how she cleared the sky so quickly. He actually went to the doorway and outside to confirm what he'd seen from the window, and view the receding polychromatic contrail. As he came back in, his horn glowed as he put quill to parchment, but this time, he placed a big tick in the tick box for clear sky. Rarity took center stage. And now Prince Blueblood, let me explain why I made these choices, and then you can tell me what you would have done differently. She started moving around. The flowers on the balconies are common types grown around Ponyville, to symbolize the agriculture of the town, and the part the princess plays by bringing forth the sun to help them grow. The hangings show the transition from night to day, and the ribbons are pure silk, and once again a graduated pattern for deep blues to bright orange to represent the sunrise. This time, Blueblood actually listened. It helped that the other unicorn was no longer gushing over him like some overeager debutante at a cantorlet ball. I see, but the hangings are plain cotton. Why not silk? Cost, I'm afraid the budget I was given by the mayor only went so far. But I created every stitch of them myself. I worked for days, crafting and reworking until I believed they were the best I could accomplish. But you had the money for gems, though not many, I'll admit. He pointed a hoof to the balconies. From my own private stock. Rarity replied. I could have added more, but they would have made it look rather too gaudy, whereas I was going for elegant simplicity. The gems I have used are carefully positioned to illuminate and halo the princess when the sun rises. This is her celebration, after all. It was something of a wrench to use so many of my finest gems, but when one has a vision, one must sometimes make sacrifices to bring it to life, no. Blueblood moved forward, really examining the place for the first time. Fashion and art was an acceptable pastime, nay, a necessity in the fashion-conscious society of Canterlot. I understand what you're trying to do, but have you considered? He started making suggestions, and Rarity listened. The pair soon got into a discussion of aesthetics, Blueblood's ideas sparking off Rarity's and vice versa. Some changes were discarded, but others eagerly taken on board by the unicorn mare. Blueblood found he was actually enjoying himself, though when he found out just what they had to work with, blank shock was closer to the mark. Finally the agreed changes were all made, and the place looked wonderful. He levitated the checklist again. He put on a stern face. I have considered the quality of the decorations, and the fineness of the materials, and I have no choice but to give it my unashamed seal of approval. He smirked at the way Rarity's expression had shifted as he'd given his verdict. Any pony can make something spectacular with superior materials, managing to accomplish so much with so little, that is the mark of a true artist. Fortunately, Twilight caught the unicorn mare as she fainted in relief. Once she recovered, they returned to Fluttershy's cottage, Pinkie bouncing along happily and singing, as the prince travelling at a more sedate pace. Fluttershy, oh my, mistress of creatures. Cares for all, both big and small, cute and fluffy. And that dear prince is just why she decided to try to provide a wondrous show you'll adore. Clearly splendiferous. Jaws hit the floor. As you listen to her great chorus of birds that sing to the sky. Make way for Fluttershy. Fluttershy dashed on ahead, cheeks blushing as Pinkie extolled her virtues. Oh, my! When they got there, she'd already marshaled her birds, several of whom gave Prince Blueblood a very sharp stare. But Fluttershy calmed them down. Now, I know we didn't get off to the best start, but I want you to sing the best you've ever sung. Show Prince Blueblood just how wonderful I know you are. She led them with a few notes and they joined in. The notes of the royal fanfare embodied in birdsong, and no bird was going to disappoint Fluttershy by doing any less than their best. The jays sang the A's, the swallows didn't swallow their notes, and the tits hit every high note perfectly. It was a glorious chorus. At the end there was a silence more impressive than any amount of hoof-stomping or cheers. Twilight finally grinned. Now tell me you'll find that anywhere in Equestria, even the Royal Canterlot Gardens. Blueblood had a stunned look on his face. I don't believe it. Like I said, every pony has pulled out all the stops for this event. Blueblood ticked the box for music, and Pinky called out, woohoo! 3 down, 1 to go. And we've saved the best till last. Applejack exclaimed. As they approached Sweet Apple Acres, a rainbow blur approached it too, heading back from Canterlot. Rainbow Dash skidded to a halt by the party, tapping her saddlebag with a wingtip. Okay, Codex, I got your special package right here. Excellent. Twilight conducted the prince past the Apple family members, and into the same gazebo that she'd had her own samples in. After a moment, Applejack came from the direction of the farm, carrying a tray with 2 plates and 2 slices of apple pie and a jug and glass of water. Codex explained how you ponies in Canterlot are so fussed about watching your weight, so I figured fritters might not be the best thing to serve you. So I figured we'd go with the basics, a slice of my own homemade apple pie. Twilight levitated the plates. Just for comparison, I had Rainbow Dash go fetch a slice of apple pie from one of Canterlot's most expensive bakeries. She put down a slender slice that had a red sauce drizzled over it and a small lump of ice cream. To compare with Applejack's, she put down the other, which lacked the adornment. Blueblood sampled both of them, drinking a sip of water after each. Then he had some more. And some more, until there was nothing left but crumbs on either plate. He had a look of acute indecision on his face. Applejack saw it and said, Sugar Cube, I don't know how my cooking holds up against that fancy Canterlot baking. All I know is I made the best darned apple pie I could. I ain't going to serve the princess anything less. So I ain't going to be offended by your honest opinion. At least you tried it. Blueblood sighed, his eyes half-lidded as he licked his lips. It's not an easy choice. I have to admit that both of them were excellent. The pastry was delightfully flaky and melted in the mouth, and the filling was the perfect mix of sweet and tart. However, taking everything into account, I believe that one was better, though only slightly. He pointed to the plate which still had traces of sauce. Yee-haw! Applejack hollered, and the prince flinched. I'm mighty pleased to hear you say that, Your Highness, because that was my own homemade pie. What? Prince Blueblood looked surprised. But I thought that was the Canterlot pie. Twilight giggled. I never said that, I only said we had the 2 for comparison. The plain pie was from Canterlot. After all, you couldn't expect all that drizzled sauce to stay put while Rainbow Dash was flying back at full clip. I see. Blueblood gave a frown which was unconvincing, as it tried to turn into a smirk. You are a devious pony, Miss Codex. You have no idea. Twilight giggled again as he ticked the last box, and signed the checklist at the bottom. Twiljit focused for a moment, and a copy appeared. A duplicate for your records, Mayor. Thank you, Codex. She glanced over at the guards. I suggest you take Prince Blueblood home. I think he's had quite enough excitement for one day. Actually, Twilight was loath to let the change in attitude go to waste. Blueblood had made an honest effort, and it was only fair he should be rewarded. You said you were planning a party. That killed the prince's good mood. I was, but it's too late now. I suspect by now most of my must-invite list have made other arrangements. And it's too close to evening to get anything organized anyway. Twilight made a show of thinking. How was your party going to be different from all those other ones, or the hundreds of others those ponies attended? I was going to host it. Blueblood preened. Though I'll admit finding something else unique to act as a draw gets hard. I had even considered Sapphire Shores, or one of the Wonderbolts, but even that's been done. Have you considered bringing it here? Twilight asked. What? The response was pretty much universal. Guys, think about it. You get to show off all your hard work, not just to the princess but a whole cart full of ponies from Canterlot. It couldn't hurt to have them think well of Ponyville. I don't know, Codex, not every pony is going to be as open-minded as you are. Applejack mused. It's not the done thing, Blueblood added. That might not be so bad. Twilight responded. You were saying that you were looking for something new. It's close, pretty much all you have to do is arrange transport, and the princess herself will be here. After all, you already certified it was good enough for her, you even had a horn in the decorations so they should have no complaints. You have a point. Yes, I can see how to pitch it. The princess would be a big draw, and I can play up the difference. Prince Blueblood is a trendsetter, not some pony who just follows the herd. It would be daring, avant-garde. I like this idea. That's well and all, but I still don't know if they'll get on all right with us regular ponies. I can assure that. Prince Blueblood said with a grin bordering on evil. No pony will want to embarrass the princess, or themselves by suggesting that something she approved is not good enough for them. And if they prove intransigent, I'll simply set Codex here on them. That had Twilight blushing as her friends laughed. After Blueblood was escorted out, Pinky bounced up. You know what this calls for? A party. That's your answer to everything. Applejack exclaimed. That's because it's a good answer. Pinky beamed back. We still have to welcome Codex properly, and I've invited a lot of other ponies to meet her. Mayor, are you coming too? You go on ahead. The mayor gave a tired smile. I'll look in later. Okie dokie Loki. She grabbed Twilight by the hoof. Come in, Princess Celestia's going to lower the sun soon, we can watch the twilight sparkle. That got Twilight doing a double take, but she just shook her head and let the pink pony lead her away. As Twilight partied with her new friends, she thought back to the earlier party, and then to Spike, her ostensible reason for going. While it had started as just a ploy, realizing how much it had meant to Spike had made it more than that. This whole business with Blueblood had made her reconsider just how she was affecting every pony with her plan, not just the princess. She keenly felt his absence at her side, despite the fact that it was only temporary. She also wondered if her letter to him had been clear enough. He was, after all, only a baby dragon, and might not be able to accept being left behind easily, even for a short while. She quickly came to a decision, and got Rarity off to one side. Yes, Codex darling. Do you have any blue garnets lying around? I want to send some to a very dear friend in Canterlot. I had to leave without saying goodbye properly and it worries me. Of course dear, I have plenty. Take what you need. I don't want you to think I'm not accepting them in the generous spirit they were given, but if it's all the same to you, I'd like to find a way to repay you, to earn them. It's because I want to give them to my friend, and getting them without working for them feels like cheating. Rarity was silent for a moment, and Twilight thought she might have made a huge mistake, but then the white unicorn smiled. Of course dear, I understand. The value of a gift is the work you put into getting it. If you want to help out, I have several months of receipts and bills I need to organize and file. As a matter of fact, I've been putting it off, as it's something I don't enjoy at all. Twilight smiled brightly. That sounds perfect. Asterisk. Spike was deep in his second tub of rocky road when he felt a burp coming on. A flash of flame released a scroll, but not one of Celestia's. Several blue garnets, one of his favorite gemstones, spilled out as he opened it, but it was the text that held his attention. Dear Spike. I said I'd be in contact as soon as possible. I know gemstones aren't much of a replacement for a hug, but could you consider the other a given? I've managed to settle in, and I'm doing well, but things are so different here. I've been thinking, and I may have been wrong to rush off. I was just too ashamed to face Celestia right then, but I should have at least have stayed to take my lumps in person rather than running away. Sometimes, having to face a problem head-on is the only right thing to do. I learned that while I was here. I will come back and face her after the summer sun celebration. Things are crazy here at the moment, and she's probably far too busy with her own preparations to have time for me right now. Know that just because we're apart, it doesn't mean I don't think of you, and hope we can be back together as soon as possible. Your friend. Twilight Sparkle. Spike read the message again, then held it to his chest as a great weight seemed to vanish from inside it. Twilight hadn't abandoned him. He hadn't realized Twilight even knew the flame mail spell, but then who could keep up with everything Twilight was studying? He eagerly started off to go show Princess Celestia the message. She'd want to know about it. Then he came back, scooped up the garnets in his ice cream tub. After all, she had sent them especially for him, and Rocky Road went well with garnets. Princess Celestia was indeed pleased to receive the letter, and not just because it told her Twilight was doing well. However, it seemed Spike couldn't target a reply. She performed a series of magical tests of her own and discovered that Twilight hadn't cast the flame mail spell perfectly after all. It seemed she hadn't fully taken into account the heft of the garnets, and the wobble it had imparted to the virtual catenary of the letter had wiped out any trace of a return path. There was no way to backtrack it and find out where in Equestria she was. Spike, I think you should take this letter to Shining Armor too. He and his parents must be worried about Twilight too. It was getting towards evening, when she'd have to raise the moon. For 1,000 years, her sister's face stared down at her in reproach at her not having saved her from the darkness that had consumed her. For a moment she considered altering its course to disrupt the conjunction, but that would cause a dreadful magical backlash that could cause at least as much chaos as her sister's return. Besides, this conjunction would not be possible for another 1,000 years, and to leave her sister up there for that long. Forgive me, my subjects. Celestia thought. I have to trust in Shining Armor and that Twilight will find a way to save you all. I can only play my part to help them. / 21, 2, Jim Quirk. Twilight gazed out through the bars of the enclosure as she ran through her start of loop checklist. Not the baseline start point, pretty sure this isn't Equestria, standard equiform body type, I appear to be my default self, wait. What's that squeaking noise? She looked behind her to see Pinkie Pie trotting along in a giant exercise wheel. Or was it that she and Pinkie were in miniature and the wheel and the cage surrounding them was normal-sized? That big water bottle suspended on one side of the enclosure seemed to support the latter theory. Beyond the bars, on the surface, counter, nearby was an enormous bundle of paper in an equally enormous clipboard. She could just make out the stationary header on the top page, Acme Labs. As the loop-specific memories/background finally arrived, Pinkie chirped, "Chi-Chui, what do you want to do tonight?" "Just run with it," she decided with a mental shrug. "The same thing we do every night, Pinkie, try to take over the world." "They're Pinkie and the Brain." "Yes, Pinkie and the Brain. One is a genius. The other's insane. They're ponies in a cage. The unicorn's a mage. They're dinky. They're Pinkie and the Brain, 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 brain. Narf," added Pinkie for no particular reason. / 21, 3. "Right, fillies and gentle colts," Twilight said, then paused. I mean, girls and Spike. Anyway." The mare tapped her board with a swagger stick. "We face a terrifying reality." Her wings flapped once for emphasis. "I am a Pegasus, with the talent of magic, and my element of magic is a necklace here." "Yet, we noticed," Dash said. "Furthermore," Twilight continued, ignoring her, "Applejack is a unicorn." Another pause. "And I have to say, those giant apples you've been making so far this loop are delicious. Something to follow up on, if you can still pull it off." "Thanks," the currently a unicorn said cheerfully. "Both Dash and Rarity are earth ponies." And I don't know how this version of you got her cutie mark. Dash cut in again. I run kinda like that Sonic guy. I can run across water, which makes these rainbow gemmed sprays of water. Kinda looks neat. Think you can break the sound barrier? Twilight asked, then shook her head. Sorry, stupid question, of course you can. We're getting off topic. There's a topic. Spike asked, his arm around Rarity. We're just saying stuff we already know. I am aware of that. Twilight tapped her swagger stick again. But I want to make my conclusions totally clear. Now, Fluttershy is the only one of us who has kept her base form aside from Spike. And, as far as my experiences have shown, we elements tend to be a 2-2-2 mix of the three baseline pony types. At first. Yet, we know Pinky's a unicorn, Spike pointed out. We all met her so far this loop. And she's not awake, Twilight pointed out. Now, since she's not awake, and her element is the crown, for unknown reasons, she trailed off. Wait, Applejack said slowly. Didn't y'all once say that, if the one with the tiara for an element wasn't awake? Exactly. Twilight pressed a button, and the projector showed an image of Princess Pinkie Pie. Then it changed to show a long list of titles. This was obtained from the hub loop, Twilight said, pointing at the top. These two are the events with Nightmare Moon which we've already handled, of course. The remaining 63 episodes are the significant events to happen before and leading up to P-Day. Girls, Twilight finished, this is the countdown to our breakdown. May Celestia help us all.